It's time to talk NASCAR on Prime Sports Network. Bristol Dirt on Saturday.
We could stop there.
On Sunday.
Yeah.
And I will say this though: if they're going to run this race, which they are, I'm glad they're running it on the same day as the final round of the Masters, because this way I can go and just watch some golf. And I mean, look, it's you never know what's going to happen because it is dirt, and as we've seen over the last 2 years that they've run on dirt, there's no rhyme or reason to handicap this, that. I mean, maybe there's a couple of drivers, of course, we'll get into in a little bit, but overall, nobody really can tell. Maybe by after this race, especially if they decide to keep running this thing for a few more years, maybe we'll get a little bit more of an idea after Sunday, but so far we don't have really much to go on. Last week we had, it just keeps happening. I think it was like after the midway point, and we talked about how at Richmond, the more patient driver, the driver that can hold off until late, those are going to be the better drivers, and everything. I'm looking at my leaderboard and I'm seeing 3 of my picks: Hamlin, Truex, and even Bell, and I'm going, this shouldn't be much of a problem here the way it's looking.
Yep.
And sure enough, we get 2 cautions that change everything for those drivers. First off, what happened to Denny Hamlin? Because if there wasn't another caution in the race, and I know that's asking a lot, but if there wasn't, looked like that was Denny Hamlin's race. What happened to Denny Hamlin after that caution?
Was it the pit road speeding penalty, I think? Then he get caught with the speeding penalty, I think, which put him back at the tail and playing from behind him, which that's self-inflicted. He seems to be the master of speeding on pit road. So that's kind of what derailed him. And even still, like you're saying, at that final caution, or the second to last caution, which created the whole Christopher Phelps dive bomb blaming Ross Chastain for it, Truex was going to win that. He was already side by side with Byron. So it's like everything we talked about was happening, and then the caution just.
And what happened to Truex?
So what happened was, which I like this strategy move, like we talked about. It's an age track. It wears tires, and you only have so many you can use in a weekend. And unfortunately, they hit their limit because they stopped twice. And I don't know if it was the first or second stage. They had an extra pit stop where they took tires. So he was out of tires, and everybody else had a fresh set left. And which I worded in my post this week between Richmond and Bristol is it time for him and his crew chief to kind of break? We've been talking about this a lot because his crew chief never told him they were out of tires. He didn't know. He thought there was something wrong with his car that whole last run because he was on. So the tires they took were already used tires. The only reason they switched it was because the heat cycle, so they were cooled down enough that you can, because most people are like, well, why did you even pit then? If you didn't have any extra tires, why even pit? Well, they just used another set that didn't have as many laps on. The one he was currently on, it's cooled down. Let's put them on. However, they're used.
All right. What? All right. Yes. And we're going to get into that. But so why did they not have enough tires? What happened earlier in the race? What did they do differently?
They had an extra pit stop where, some teams are like, well, we'll stay out on this one, we'll pit in the next one. And they pit every time the caution came out.
Why?
And every time they pit. Strategy, I think they thought, and it was playing out for them because they got in the track position.
Yeah, but I mean.
And you probably should have been smarter to just save a set of tires.
Did anybody else have that issue?
If they did, it wasn't somebody that finished up top.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have known. But they were the one that felt
it's
like
always
a rock,
something.
obviously. It is. Again, the caution would come out, he wins, but then the caution comes out and it's screwed. And then the fact that they don't even tell him, maybe he would have raced differently.
Okay.
It's baffling. It's just, again, it's like, man, that whole caution just changed everything. This is where it'd be frustrating for a bettor. Like, I bet off of the cars that we're probably going to win, and I had under no control over anything, you lose.
And the cautions come out and change everything.
Yep. It does. And that's the thing. I would just wish there was a way to you can't plan for it, but it alters everything.
It's like I said a few weeks ago. I mean, I certainly hope that there are guys that are gambling on this sport that are having a lot better luck than I have had with these changes late in the races with the cautions. Yep. I hope so, because
it's baffling.
It's killing me.
The guys that are winning, it just goes to show. It's almost the time it's like, yeah, you know what? There is no rhyme or reason to look at anything in the past stats, because there'd be no reason to take Kyle Larson last week and he wins.
It's like a guess.
You're just kind of guessing.
It's almost like, by the way, it's almost like, maybe, and I saw that you actually, your picks this week mirrored CJ's normal picks line. And I was thinking back in my head, well, Eric's probably sick of the way that these races are going. And he's like, I'm just going to pick this way. It's working for CJ. And I'm just going to put all these guys up and someone will luckily come out ahead.
You think, because I looked at it, the two winners of this race, this would be a race you'd have a longer shot win, but you start looking at who's been good or who has momentum. And the 16-1, Kyle Busch won last year, and 30-1, Joey Logano won the year before. So if you look at, it'd be basically 18-1, Denny Hamlin on down. But then you look at that list and like, who on earth in that list is going to somehow win this race?
You're right. You're right. Once you get past, not Denny Hamlin, but I think, I mean, you have Bowman, which I agree with.
He would be, yeah.
But here's the thing I'm surprised about. Why didn't either of you guys, and maybe, again, this is why you guys are the experts and I'm not, but why didn't you guys like Suarez or Truex at 25-1?
One, because I don't like the way Suarez is going right now.
Well, really, neither of them are going in a very good.
Yeah.
So I get that.
They both led laps there. It was. I felt better with Bowman with the Hendrick seems to just find wins.
Right. He'll be the lucky winner this year.
Yeah.
This week.
Truex, it's just like I was going to, and then last week again, it's just like they just keep inventing ways to lose. It's just you're out of tires now, or when you come down to this race, is going to be a strategy in a sense. You're going to have one pit stop if everything goes to plan, which you can't plan for the unexpected. So you can make from start to finish on one pit stop. You don't have live pit stops here. So you can only pit at the stage breaks. Which stage break do you pit on then? Do you just go all out and pit at the end of the first stage and then save the second and third stage? Do you just go all out the first two stages, pit, and then know you're good the rest of the way? I don't trust Truex or his crew chief to figure this out. And that's the reason why because on paper, 25-1 on both of them, you would think, because Truex led 126 laps, and then Suarez led 58-64.
Yes, I couldn't pass on that. I know what you're saying, but at 25-1, I just couldn't pass on that.
And they'd be the two that would win. It's just like the other odds. It's like this is where the gambling where they don't entice you very much, is they just throw all the heavy hitters between 5 and 10-1, basically. It's like you don't even open up a chance to go with more than. So I thought, well, those guys have been running well this year. They're good on dirt. They've run Bristol well in the past. I might as well just roll with them and probably lose. But there's no rhyme or reason for those guys, one of those guys not to win.
Well,
but with how the season's gone, they probably won't win. And it probably will be like Josh Berry is somehow going to win this race.
Yeah, right.
Like, well, that's random. He's never.
How about that Davenport dude, whoever he is?
The college third driver. Yeah, never raced a NASCAR race before, but hey,
60-1, whatever he is. Yeah.
Or let's see, Ty Dillon. This will be the week Ty Dillon.
Hey, yeah. This is probably the week Ty Dillon better finish in the top 15, or else maybe they should fire him. Yeah, he's not going to have a better chance to probably finish.
No, it's just getting crazy. It's just there is no rhyme or reason.
No, it's going to be tough.
You factor all the off-track stuff that's going on, and they're hurting right now. NASCAR's hurting.
All right, so just quickly wrapping up last week. By the way, you actually beat me in points on the fantasy team, even though I got the winner with Larson. So you once again have had a lot of drivers in excellent position, finishing in the top 5 and top 10. Bad week for CJ, even though CJ had Martin Truex and William Byron, who both led, a combined 183 laps, I think. And he couldn't get a win there from either one of those. He did get Gibbs as his best finisher, finishing 9th. So it was one of those. It was one of those weeks in fantasy, but you continue to have a wide lead on the two of us. And as far as the points are concerned, Bowman continues to lead overall. We still have a long way to go points-wise before we start figuring out what the points standings really look like.
Yeah.
We're a long way from figuring it out. Okay, let's start with the picks of this race. We're going to go over in order odds. And look, again, like we said, we only have 2 races. And here's the thing we were just talking about. So the first race, 2021, a Ford wins, started 10th. The top 12 finishers of the race, 8 of the 12 started the race outside the top 12.
Yep.
So now we go to 2022. A Toyota wins from the 11th position. I mean, that's the only thing that we got going. Maybe we should pick a 9, 10, 11, or 12 starting position. That's
probably, yeah.
So you got Toyota. Top 10 finishers, 8 of the 10 started inside the top 12. So now a lot, of course, has to do, too, with we had a lot of drama. And we have had some drama, which is, I think, the only thing that's been fun about these races. Not so necessarily fun when you had the amazing finish last year with Briscoe and with Reddick and Briscoe. Look, Briscoe did what he had to do. You could say what you want, but it wasn't like he did it intentionally. He had no other recourse but to try to make the move that he made. It didn't work out. And Kyle Busch was the beneficiary. He had no right winning the race, but he won it. And it happens sometimes. You know, once every year or two, you're going to get those 2 drivers in front, and they're going to wreck in the last lap, and the driver who's third is going to win the race. That's what happened to Kyle Busch last year. So, yeah, and then the year before that, it was the daytime. Last year was the nighttime, so you got to consider that. So there are differences. And then they had the rain last year. Let's remember that. So there was there's just a lot of craziness going on in this particular race. I don't, again, particularly like it. I don't think the drivers do. Is there anything at all that you can try and use, any handicapping tool at all, besides, well, this driver has a certain so-and-so background and, you know, he's better on the dirt, or anything in these 2 races that we've seen that you can use as a handicapping tool?
Not really, unfortunately, because, as you said, 2021 was a day race, and last year was a night race. And those are completely different circumstances, because dirt at night gets actual moisture. It doesn't get as dry. And where you could see, because over the end of the 2021 race, they were doing single file restarts because it was so dusty. Well, nighttime helps with that. However, NASCAR, with the car behind me, Larson's got a windshield. You can't make it too muddy or too much moisture, because it's going to clump on the steering, or the windshield, and you can't see. So they got that factor. You had the next gen last year compared to the old car in 2021. Like you said, you had the rain that added more natural grip towards the end. There's really nothing you could take over. The season, like I said, I made my picks based off momentum and stuff, but does it really matter this week? No, because this track is not anything like we've seen prior to this week, and we haven't seen it since last year with this car. So
it's sort of like going to a super speedway draft race, where it doesn't really matter how good or bad you're racing. This is just a completely different animal.
It's completely different. And there's no metrics you can use, like, well, this guy was at this many laps in the top 15, and that's like, that doesn't work, because I've always said, and it's proved me right with the Byron thing, it doesn't matter about what happens during the race. The finishing result is what matters. Who cares about how many laps are in the top 15? I think Denny Hamlin made a comment on his podcast a few weeks ago about 30 to 40% of the time, the winner does not have the fastest car. That's the way NASCAR is now. Last week was a prime example. Larson had a good car. Was he the best car? Probably not. The Gibbs guys were. They didn't win. So you can't really look at like, well, this guy had this many laps in the top 15. That's irrelevant, especially for this race, because when you have, like I said, you got the two stages. They're both 75 laps in length. The final stage is 100. You can do the race on the one pit stop. It's just, when do you pit? So as that has evolved over these 2 years, that's why I think you saw the finishing or the starting spots for the finishing order at the end kind of flip, how the outside the top 10 in the first year, and the guys that started maybe inside the top 10 because they saw something. Well, if we pit here, it's kind of monkey see, monkey do. So I think it's going to look more like last year, obviously, because the cars are different. This one's similar to last year with the conditions, but do we truly know? No. There's no. If anybody tells you they do, then just run. They don't know what they're talking about.
All right, so let's get started with predicting the race now. And whenever we do start, before we get into anything, I ask you, how many drivers do we all have the same each week, and as far as our picks? And, they usually range from like 2 to 5. This week is the first week, I think, ever that we do not have a single driver that we all agreed upon.
Wow. I don't remember that ever happening. So, yeah, this is probably the first.
And it's got to be a dirt race, right?
Yeah, of course.
So
Yep.
Part of that is because, again, I went with a different strategy. I did not take either of the 3 favorites. I just went against it. They haven't won yet. And until they win one of these dirt races, I'm just going to go against that particular trend. That is a trend so far, if you want to call 2 races a trend. So let's see. CJ, you both, by the way, took all 3. I took none of them. So you got Larson at 5-1, Bell and Reddick at 6-1. Now, when this started a couple of years ago, it was all about Larson and Bell. Those were the 2 heavy favorites. Those were the, okay. Bell had the crash in 21. Larson, I don't know what he did. He also got into trouble?
He got caught up in a crash.
So they both got taken out. Larson last year finished 4th, led 27 laps, but really didn't look like he was anything special in my mind. No. Bell finished 7th, and the same thing. He didn't look like. So Reddick looks like the guy out of the 3 that if I was going to put money on, the reason I decided not to, though, is he just won 2 races in the last 3. But we know how good he was last year. He led 99 laps, would have won if he wasn't taken out, was 7th in 21. So that's the way I would go with Reddick if I was going to take any of the 3. But I just decided to, until a favorite wins this race, I'm not going to go in that direction.
And it's hard. And these guys have said, too. I mean, they've all 3 obviously got dirt racing background, extensively more Larson, Bell. And I know over the year, or maybe the last year or so, talking with those drivers, have all mentioned that running a NASCAR on dirt, you would think, because that's always the question, does dirt experience pay off for these cars at Bristol since it's so new? You would think, hey, these guys have won Chili Bowls and Turkey Nights and the Hoosier 100 and Knoxville and Eldora, that, hey, these should be the ones to beat. However, they've cautioned, this is a car not made for dirt. We've done our damage on cars made for dirt. It's completely different running on a track that the suspension is not made to what it needs to do for what you like the feeling of the car.
Is that because it's a heavier car?
It is. It's a lot heavier than these dirt cars. And I think like even a late model, it's like 1,000 pounds more weight to the Cup car than it is a late model. And it's way more than a midget. And like they said, because they're used to entering these corners, high rates of speed, letting all up, hang loose, let the back end come out, slide through and pick up the throttle. And they're just really, it's an art. You can't do that in a Cup car. It's too heavy. The suspension is not made to handle that. So in order for them to use their dirt experience, you kind of have to forget everything you've learned from your dirt experience because it doesn't pay off. That's why some of these newer guys that are winning is like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel on dirt anyway, so I'm just going to race it how I'm supposed to. So in the third year, I think that they probably have learned enough where they should now. Granted, two different cars, from the first, or a different car from the first year. So, but this is the second time with this car. So they're running good on the season. But as you said, Reddick, he in the next gen, if not for Chase Briscoe, and granted, as we talked about, he just had to make the move to go for the win. He wasn't just going to ride in second. It didn't help him, and he already had a win. Reddick was going to win this race last year. So you look at that standpoint, he's kind of figured out. I don't see him going backwards when he's been this good anyways. But I also looked, the top 5 at the inaugural race, 30-1 won, 14-1 was second, 25-1 was third, 101 fourth, 50-1 fifth, 66-1 sixth, and 25-1 led the most laps. Last year, 18-1 won, 14-1 was second, 8-1 third, 6-1 fourth, Larson, and Blaney, 16-1, was fifth. So the longer shots are finishing up front. And if you want to follow trends, you got to think that's probably better off looking deeper. So we'll see. This race this year is probably going to tell us more trends for the future.
This is it.
So we kind of have to get through it, but.
So you would go with Reddick above the other two, or who would you go with as your top pick?
Yeah, just because he's proven. It's hard to know because again, it feels like it's a guess, but at least you have an educated guess with him, as you said. I mean, leading 99 laps from a front row starting spot.
And he should have won.
Last year with this car, it should have won. When Larson was good and Bell was seventh, he also started up front. Reddick started third, Bell was second. But he also was better. So I would lean that way. But again, we'll see what Sunday holds.
All right. Next up, we have Byron, Logano, and Briscoe at 10-1. And Byron was 6th in 21, but with the new car, he was 18th last year. So we all decided to pass on Byron this week. But Logano and Briscoe, you and I did not pass on them. CJ did. And that's, again, another reason why we didn't all pick the same drivers. But you and I both went with Logano and Briscoe, and I just felt this was a no-brainer because if Logano ends up like in the top 5 or he wins the race, one of those things, it's like, all right, well, there you go. I mean, he's the man on dirt.
He's proven that, yeah.
So that's why I can't pass on him this week because he could be the man.
Yep.
Briscoe, after keeping in mind that part of the reason he did what he did last week was because last year he did feel like he was possibly the best car. So he was going to try to win that race, and it didn't work out for him. But, he led 59 laps, and he also, I believe, had a top 5 in the truck race on dirt in 21. So he seems to be pretty good at the dirt tracks there at the Briscoe over the last couple of years. 10-1, that's the only thing. But when I'm not taking the top 3 drivers, makes it a lot easier for me to take Logano and Briscoe at 10-1.
It's baffling again that Byron's sitting there. He's got no dirt background, and you look at what about him? 6th and 20 again is a different car. 18th last year, started 19th. What about him should be 10-1? It's like that was the most easiest. I'm eliminating him. He said like Logano.
And by the way, William Byron has basically been hit or miss this year. It's not like he's been either top 5 winning or he's outside the top 20.
Yep. And he's been taken out. It's just this isn't the week that I'm going to waste the 10-1 with William Byron. No. This isn't the track. Logano, you said, if Logano comes with another top 5, top 3, he's got 2 straight top 3s. He started 10th both years. He's getting him for 10-1. That seems like a bargain right there. And then Briscoe, he's a dirt guy by nature too. He's a sprint car driver. He's raced midgets. He knows what it's like to race a car like that on the dirt. And the fact that he's probably, his finishes don't indicate it, but he's probably the better of the dirt guys on this track. Because, yes, 22nd last year, but he started 4th. He was running 2nd on that final lap. This year he needs a win, whereas last year he already had a win. I think he'd be a little more calculated, meticulous in how he could get that win. And you're getting him at 10-1. I thought that too was it's almost insulting for them to have Byron listed with them. It's like, well, what has he done to get
No.
And Logano's running the truck race again this weekend, so he's going to have experience again. And he finished 6th in the truck race last year. So if he gets another top 6, that's 4 top 6s in 4 tries on that track behind me, yeah, it's 10-1 was a no-brainer that direction.
By the way, this is as good a time as any to blame Eric again, the reason why we're starting on Thursday. But this was a justified reason. Even, I mean, family is important. And when you got to take the family out, you can take the family out. So you had a little day off.
Which allows me to keep doing this, so it's not getting yelled at for still doing it. So, hopefully we're at the mercy. I would hope the IndyCar teleconference.
It better not be. Watch, it'll be on Tuesday, and then it'll be like, oh, yeah, we're going to do Tuesdays now all year.
Yeah. And if they do, can you just do it in the morning?
I know, right?
Like Tuesday's a weird. It was always Wednesday. Since the pandemic hit, when they started doing this, they haven't stopped. It was always on Wednesdays, right in the middle of the week. So I'm hoping.
Fingers crossed.
Maybe.
So keep that in mind. If you don't see us on Tuesday next week, you know why. All right.
The Indy.
Kyle Busch, 12-1, the defending champ, as we mentioned, but the lucky, he stole the race. Didn't do much in 21. You guys both put a little bit of money on him, and I was the only one to stay away. So what about Kyle?
The only reason I did was he did win last year, so that he was third for majority of that final stage. And he's got the car that led 99 laps last year. So I thought, well, for 12-1, and he's got that car, I would feel foolish if he did end up getting the win, and he was 12-1 with that car. So that's the only reason I went. The only reason is because I used that car as a benchmark. But are we really going to see him win 2 of the 3 races at the race that he's dogged from? Yeah. It just doesn't seem likely. But for 12-1, I'm like, I got to go in that direction.
Okay, 15-1. Now, I put money on Blaney, and CJ put money on Chastain, and you skipped both 15-1 drivers. The reason I put money on Blaney is because if you look at both races, he actually did pretty well. Not just the results, but they were real results. 5th last year and 8th the year before that. Matter of fact, he finished 8th the first time out, and he got into a big kind of pile up almost, and still ended up finishing 8th. So I'd like to see what he could do if he actually had the lead in one of these races. But I just felt that 15-1. He's been solid here, so it hasn't been a problem for him. And Chastain, I did stay away from. He's got the 2 bad results, 1 engine, 1 wreck. So it's like, well, I mean, Chastain at 15-1 is maybe a decent bargain as Suarez's teammate. We'll talk about Suarez in a bit. But I just kind of felt this was the week to take off for Chastain.
Yeah, I felt I was out of money at this point because I had 80 or 92 of my 100 allotted dollars already spent. So I'm like, well, that's the only reason, because I had Blaney. And I was like, how do I finagle a way to get Blaney? But the reason Kyle won out is because he won, and Blaney's ran that winless streak. I'm like, he's another guy that just keeps finding ways to lose. But he's been solid. I feel like 15-1 is a bargain for 8th and 5th. Chastain, I had no idea why he's 15-1. Like Byron, I feel like him and Suarez would flip. I mean, because like you said, his finishes are 35th and 33rd. You mentioned, I'm not a dirt guy. I'm not comfortable on dirt. This isn't my type of racing. 15-1 was just foolish. I'm like, there would be absolutely no way. He should be. If Martin Truex Jr. is 25-1, why is Chastain not 25? That just made zero sense to me. I'll go on. I mean, I'll eat crow next week if he does, but I'm going to say it. There's a 99.9% chance Chastain is not winning on Sunday. So I'm not going to waste money that direction. It's just not going to happen.
All right. So at 18-1, now CJ and I put money on Hamlin, and he did finish a solid 3rd in 21. So last year he had engine problems, so I'm throwing that out. This play, and I do not like the way Hamlin's going so far this year. You talk about finding ways to lose. But the only reason I did this is because I looked at, and here's another thing that might be a trend, is we had 2 veteran championship, not that Hamlin's a championship driver, but you get my gist, 2 veteran drivers, championship pedigree, with good odds. Fitz Hamlin, he's 18-1, championship type guy. He's a veteran. That's the only reason, because maybe that's a trend that we'll see is a Harvick or a Hamlin win this week. One of those guys with long shot money.
It would make sense, and he's right around that wheelhouse of the 18 to 1. Finished third, started second, inaugural year. Plus, and I make this in light because I like Kenny and we follow each other on social media and banter back and forth sometimes in positive ways. But that's why I preface my saying I don't mean this to take a shot at him, but there's no live pit stops. He's not going to be speeding on pit road to take him out of a race win this week, which has done that more times than not this year. He's had race-winning cars. He's just sped, and he's had to come from behind. He doesn't have to worry about that this week. You cannot pit under – I mean, if you do, one, it's going to be a massive loss. You're going to lose a ton of laps. It's going to end your race. But two, you're not – it's not even really allowed. You stop on the stage brakes to pit. So there is no speeding. You're going to pull in, you're going to stop, and the fuel-only guys will come out ahead of the guys that took 2 tires, and the 2 tires guys will come out ahead of the guys that took 4 tires in the order that you picked. So I have a feeling he's going to be running up front. It's just, can he begin to dirt? It's going to be up to the luck factor. But 18 to 1 was a bargain. And again, I looked at him too. But then with all the other guys, I had there's no way I can afford, because I had $8 already invested below them that I felt good about those guys. So he's a good pick, and so is the next guy.
See, that's what I'm saying. We had a whole bunch of a different strategy, and because you used up your money early and I didn't, I had the money to spend that you didn't with some of these drivers. Yep. Now Stenhouse is 20 to 1. CJ did go to Stenhouse, finished second and 21. Didn't do anything last year, but for Ricky Stenhouse to win 2 races at this stage of the season would be pretty remarkable.
It'd be tough. Yeah, that's the reason he's a solid pick, but I didn't have him initially. I was like, would he really win 2 of the first stage races? I don't see that happening. I mean, he's a dirt guy by nature, and he did finish runner-up that first year, but that 29th last year scared me. He's a solid play for somebody that has avoided the favorites, kind of like you did. So if you got buyers out there, they're like, hey, look, I'm not going to go the favorites. I'm going to go longer shots. It doesn't hurt to throw a few bucks his way since he's 20 to 1, but it is a big gamble, which is what this is gambling. That he's going to win 2 of the first 8 races. It's just,
I'll bet against that.
In the year of parity, it'd be hard to see that happen.
Okay, now at 25 to 1, CJ went with none of these drivers. You went with 1. I went with all 3. So again, I had the money down here in Bowman, Suarez, and Truex. I put the most on Suarez, then Truex, then Bowman. So I invested $33 in these 3 drivers out of my 100. So Bowman, 6th last year. And what was impressive about that was that he got in trouble like twice in the race. And then you looked up, and how the hell did he finish 6th? I thought he was like out of the race almost. And so that was impressive. Meanwhile, and he's 25 to 1. So you got 6th place, trouble twice, 25 to 1, leading the points, running a Chevy. And then you have Suarez, as we talked about. You went over that. 64 laps, 58 laps, 12th and 4th. Truex. The results weren't good, but he led 126, as you mentioned, in the first race. And not sure what happened last year, why he didn't, why it didn't work for him. But I think that's the main reason he's 25 to 1. But he also won the truck race in 21. So, I don't know if it's something to do with the new car that, hey, I can't do road courses and I can't do dirt like I used to with this new car. Maybe that's the case. And I sure, if he has a bad result, I'll remember that and maybe skip him next time. But I'll give him another go around, and that's why I definitely went with all 3 of these drivers.
If I didn't have Briscoe and Kyle, I would have, I'd have had all 3. Again, it's just out of the money. Bowman, all the reasons you mentioned, he's the points leader. He's at the top 10 in all but 1 race. He's a dirt guy. He's a sprint car guy. He knows what he's doing. He hasn't won since Vegas last year. He's due for a win. And it'd just be foolish with the points leader who's good on dirt is 25 to 1. You don't take him. That's just automatic. You have to take him. Suarez, like you said, the only reason I just went with Kyle because he won here last year, but Suarez has been good here. It's just his stats recently have taken a nosedive. He needs to get those back up.
On there.
No, and Truex goes into your theory. The past champions, that 25-1,
yes,
he's in
that's
that wheelhouse.
Yes.
He's won there before. He's had it. Maybe he just didn't grasp the next gen on this track last year. But the key is he raced on it last year with the car. So he knows what to do differently this year. He's a champion for a reason. He's a guy that knows what he's doing. He'll figure this out. He's 25-1. So I'd say all three are just solid plays for 20. I think your winner, it would be the burning question would be, does your winner come from the 25-1 group or the 5 and 6 to 1 group?
Maybe.
I think you can make a strong case your 25-1 group has a better chance than those guys up top.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting play, but I do like all three of those drivers if you have enough money to snag them
there you go. And then the 30-1 teammates, Keselowski and Buescher. And I put a few bucks on Keselowski. I'm the only one. Nobody put money on Buescher. Buescher, a couple top 15s here. Keselowski, 11th in both races. So I figured, all right, again, same thing. Veteran championship driver, 11th place finishes are okay. Nothing wrong with that. Having a good year, 30-1, that fits the model for me to throw at least a few bucks on him.
And you got to remember, right? Granted, you're not taking anything from this to this. However, the same track last year in September, they're the top two cars on the concrete.
Oh, really?
Remember, Buescher won. Remember, he won the Bristol race.
That's right.
And Keselowski led in almost 200 laps, but he had that tire go down, which handed the win to Buescher. So they've got Bristol figured out. And so can they just win two in a row there on concrete and dirt? And they're solid enough. Again, like you said, both races they've been in the top 15. And they seem better this year, obviously, than last year. So you got to think that top 15 becomes top 10. And if you see anything that happened like the end of last year, this top 10 could end up being top 5. We've seen that growth. And then you have a couple of guys in front take themselves out, just like Kyle was. Hey, you took your out here to win.
Never know.
Those guys running third, fourth, be right there to win. So for 30-1, that's good odds for guys
absolutely.
Like that.
Now, after this point, we all had a couple of drivers. You had money on Bowman, of course, but your deepest long shot's coming. So you have one long shot, CJ has 2, and I have 2. So I put a little bit money on Harvick at 40-1, same MO, and my crazy pick was I put a couple bucks on Gilliland. I'm not sure I ever put any money on Gilliland. CJ put a few bucks on Dylan, Austin, and a buck. And I'm assuming he did this because he just figured this is just crazy. He put a buck on LaJoy at 1,001.
Yeah.
And then you put $3 on Haley at 80-1. So talk about the rest of the long shots and why you put money on Haley.
Yeah. Harvick's interesting. He doesn't like the track, but again, the past champion theory, he's done this enough.
He's a Briscoe teammate. This is the one race a year where Harvick will go to Briscoe.
Yep. And you get it for 40-1.
Yeah.
So Dylan I thought about, but he's a dirt guy. He's raced late models. But then again, I thought they've also said late models don't translate to Cup cars on dirt. And you look at his finishes 21st and 31st. I'm like, And then you look at his finishes this year. And I think this is a big year for this year to prove it. Look at Kyle's done. Look at what Reddick's done. And then you look at Austin, 33rd, 9th, 27th, 16th, 20th, 33rd, 25th. He's not even close. So I wonder it almost seems like he's being exposed. You thought Reddick, we knew that would happen, that he'd eventually come around. And Dylan won Daytona. And you thought with Kyle coming in and how they listened to Clash and how they had similar driving styles that they like out of the cars that, okay, this is going to be Dylan's consistent breakout year. He almost seems worse.
Did he have any major changes to his team?
No, it's pretty much the same 3 team.
That's crazy.
And you look at Kyle and see how good his first year and what he's doing. And it's like, I don't like the 50-1 to me. I thought he should have probably been with his brother at 80 because he's been 80-1 these last few weeks. So punted there. Davenport, dirt guy. Again, we talked about how past dirt cars do not translate to this Cup car. And you look at some of the guys in the past that have done that, it didn't work out well for him. So I don't know why it was with him. Bubba, 27th, 28th, 2 finishes. Yes, he won Eldora Trucks years ago. His confidence, I know they finally talked about on the broadcast last week and kind of called him out for it, how you can't have that mindset.
And he actually looked pretty good there for a while.
He did, and then he just his finished
22nd.
What was he? 22nd.
I don't know what happened, but it's
not somebody you're going to take a risk on. Ty Dillon just seems out to lunch. Ty Gibbs probably going to finish 9th.
Probably.
He seems 3 weeks in a row. So I'll come to Haley in a second.
McDowell was a possibility because of the 2 top 15 finishes.
Yep. Priest is a late late model modified. He's an asphalt guy, so 80-1 for the steep. Almendinger, just no dirt experience. And then the rest of the guys like Cindric, 16th last year. Was it almost worth putting $1 to 150? I'm like, I'd rather spend it on Haley, which I'll get to. Eric Jones,
he's like Dillon. Year. It's like, some of these guys are just scratching their head at what's going on after the way they looked last year.
It is, and that's why the rest of the guys, I'm like, not going to touch. But Haley, dirt guy by nature. That guy, during speed weeks, he raced a lot down in Volusia County. I think he ran a couple races in Ocala. He won almost all of them.
Okay.
So he's got that momentum. He was 14th last year. Started 6th.
Starting 6th is good.
Yep. So he's only raced the next gen on here. He didn't race the previous car, so he only knows this car. He needs to run well. We've seen the calling, the penalties, and all that.
That's another driver that was improving last year, and we thought, hey, maybe he could take a step up, and he's taking a step back.
Yep, and this would be the time for him to go out and win this, especially after these calling penalties that just happened yesterday. That just completely opposite of what happened with Hendrick. It would just be fitting that he goes out and wins this race on Sunday. Just kind of stick it back to him, like,
worth $1.
It is, and you get him for 80-1. That's why I went 3 to win. It's like I can make some money back on this one. I just felt like 80. He probably should be 40 or 50. And Josh Berry has no dirt experience, and he's in Chase Elliott's car. And the fact he put him in at 40-1 just made 0 sense to me. He's double the odds for a dirt racer by nature, and was respectable here last year. So, plus he's good at these obscure events. You got to look at 5 of his 8 Cup or Xfinity wins are on super speedways. Remember the Clash? He keeps winning heat races and is running up front on a random track like the football stadium. Why not? Why not here? So I thought for 80-1, that's going to be my long shot.
I'll put a buck on him. All right, so top 3.
Sounds cliche to go to the top. I'm going to say Reddick. I'm going to say Reddick, Bell, and then I'll go a little bit further. I'll go Briscoe. I just feel good about those 3.
Okay. I think I'm going to go Briscoe, and then I'm going to go Bowman and Suarez. So I'll do that. Okay, now before we wrap up, we did have some viewers who made some comments last week. Paul Moss, and this was from the Playbook site. So keep in mind we do throw in basically a Saturday Playbook edition where I edit out certain parts of the show. We posted on Playbook Experts YouTube channel. You could check that out. They're kind of on hiatus because Mark is going to be working double time for the next couple of months on his yearly NFL guide. So you won't see him on that channel for a couple of months, but we will be posting clips of this show. That's where Paul comes from. He said, good info. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that, Paul. John DeRosa, meanwhile, once again, great content as always. Looking forward to watching you guys live at Talladega. And I had to just make sure John understood that we're not going to be there live at Talladega. I wish we were. But we will be doing the race, hopefully, live. That's kind of what we're leaning towards. So if you want, again, all you have to do is while you're watching the race, especially since the announcers stink, you could turn the volume off and you could listen to us. And we'll be doing now again, we won't be doing the whole race. We still haven't decided when we're going to pick it up, but we will obviously let you know. Lewis Lynn, I didn't intend. Now, Lewis Lynn said this because he made a comment about William Byron, like a positive comment. And then we talked last week about the comment, and we were going back and forth on William Byron. And I guess Lewis thought that we were being critical of his comment, which is completely not true.
Yeah, I meant to comment back to you this week, and because I was doing IndyCar stuff and got sidetracked. But yeah, that is not. Yeah, I think we took both sides from his
just
comment.
To kind of debate the issue. Yes,
a little bit wrong. Yeah, because we agreed with. He's going to win. I thought over 5 races this year. And I get what he's saying. So no, on both sides, it's. Totally get what he's saying. I meant to tell you, no, we didn't take it that way. I didn't take it that way, at least.
As Lewis said, I didn't intend for my comment to be personal. So
no, we didn't take it that way. Please keep commenting. No, did not take it that way at all.
Okay, and then Bobby Ferguson, if they aren't transparent about the reason they changed the penalties, then it's bullcrap. Yep. How would you respond to Bobby with that?
I agree. It is making this whole process confusing to fans, and it's
should it be now again, since NASCAR wasn't one that made a decision, should it be the people who did? They should come out maybe and either say something or even have a press conference.
And that's what he's saying. I agree with it. Either they need to be forthcoming about why they decided this way, or as like Harvick and these other drivers have said, then you need to have cameras in there so we can see what's going on, see what's being said, because and he said this before the penalty was announced yesterday, so which would make it even more confusing for him probably right now with like, well, for those the touch on it was colleagues and Hendrick got their louvers taken from Phoenix. That's the whole, we talked about that. So Hendrick, they got the same L2 penalty. They both 100 driver points, 10 playoff points, $100,000 fine, which Hendricks was $400,000 because it's $100,000 per car, and the crew chief suspension. Colleague got the same thing. Hendrick, they both appeal. Hendrick's appeal was heard last week, and the other penalty stood, but they got their points back. So everybody thought, all right, Colleagues was heard, so it's probably formality. They're probably going to get, should be the same, wouldn't you think? I mean, it's the same penalty. No, different. They get a same suspension for the crew chief, or crew chief in this angle, and the fine, but this is where it doesn't make any sense. They gave them 25 points back. So they still had instead of a 100-point penalty, it's a 75-point penalty for the same crime that Hendrick. So people are like, well, make it make sense.
There was no.
Is this one different? And we've got no reason. Say? They're going to appeal the appeal. They get one more chance to go to, and it's so, and they're confused just like everybody in the industry is like, I don't get it.
Well,
I don't get it.
They're not Hendrick.
No, and that's where
they're not the New York Yankees.
Exactly, and I wrote a post about this last night. And that's where the commenter's saying they need to be transparent. That's just he made this comment before last night.
That's true.
Ruling.
Bobby's comment was before that.
Now you got to think, well, okay, what's really going on? And the only difference, I'll say this, because again, you play NASCAR because it's NASCAR. They're the top. But this isn't their ruling. This isn't them. This is an appeals process.
Yes.
And the problem is with NASCAR has got to be the executioner again here. It's like, hey, we got to redo this appeals process because there's three people that hear the appeal. The difference between Hendrick and Colleague, those are three different people in each case. It's not the same group of people. To me, I think the easiest fix has got to be the same grouping.
Yeah. This way, it's a lot more consistent.
Because that's
getting different personalities, different opinions. I understand why they do it that way, but it's just it's not. You gotta do it.
But you get that going on, and then I just saw while we're on air, breaking news. Denny Hamlin's appeal, he lost it. So how does he lose his? Colleague gets their point. So penalty. In the end of the day, Hamlin, who as he said, I didn't really manipulate the outcome. If that's what you didn't penalize me on track. You penalized me for what I said afterwards. He has a 25-point penalty and a $50,000 fine, and it stands. Collie gets at least 25 points back, but there's basically the rest of their stud. Hendrick got all their points back. So it just make sense.
All right.
I don't understand.
So the person or the people that judged Collig were not the same people who judged Hendrick.
And they're not the same people who now judge Hamlin.
And that
it's just all
is ridiculous. You cannot do that.
No. So not only do you have this going on, so that's part of the problem. That's a massive problem. You also have TV ratings. Again, 42% down from last year. Granted, one was Fox Sports 1, but that's still a massive loss between the two. Then you had yesterday, the owners of NASCAR were supposed to meet. And they talked about charters and the TV deal. Like, they're supposed to have these meetings for the owners decided to grandstand NASCAR and no-call, no-show. Didn't come to the meeting.
For this reason? For the penalties?
No, not for this reason. No, just because they said that they don't trust NASCAR. Nothing's been done.
About what?
And they wanted, with the charters, they want charters permanent, and they want more of the bigger piece of the pie for the TV money. For this next deal, and they feel like nothing has really changed. So instead of wasting their time, they just didn't show up. They wanted Jim France in the meeting, is what their side was. NASCAR was like, he's here. You chose not to come meet when he's actually already here. You wasted his time. But here's where I have a problem with this, and this is, I didn't know about the meeting. Nobody in the media knew about the meeting. This was an internal, kind of a secret meeting. Why did they leak that to the media? What is it anybody's business? The owners.
The owners did, okay.
They had to have called up the Associated Press, and then other people got a hold of it, and they were messaging them back. Why do you want that in the media? Why do you want a grandstand? Because you know who doesn't care about this? The fans.
Oh, that's true.
You want to turn them off more? We've seen this with baseball. You want to see that? You want to do it? IndyCar did it. You want to start revolt and go against it? It's not going to be good for you. You had no business going to, and this is we hear us in the media talking about this. You had no business calling up and stirring drama with the media and saying, oh, you know what? We had this meeting, and guess what we did? We didn't show. Why would you do that?
So these were owners that, and again, there's no commissioner, which is different from the other sports that have a somebody that speaks for the owners. These are just owners that get on a conference call together and game plan strategy.
They're supposed to be in this leadership meeting. So all the owners and then NASCAR, we're going to meet in the NASCAR office in Charlotte and sit down and say, all right, let's negotiate this. Let's take this another step. So now it's a meeting to be productive here. Jim France, the head of NASCAR, was there, and the owners just no-call, no-showed. So instead of keeping this behind the scenes and working this out with NASCAR, hey, you know what? We're not going to show up today. We don't feel like we're still being treated fairly.
And we're going to let everybody know it, too.
And we'll let everybody know it. And it's like, what? So what?
We pout like children, and we're going to let everybody know it.
Yep.
Yes.
So where I feel like this, so that tells me the owners have no respect for NASCAR. They have no respect. The drivers have no respect for each other. We've heard them talk about that. You've got these penalties that there's no respect. Yeah. Nobody knows what's going on. NASCAR can't police their own sport. The appeals process doesn't even back NASCAR, who is the sport. And we've got TV ratings falling. So what part of this do they think is actually going to end up being good? And that's where you throw these penalties and nobody – you want to make quick people not tune in. Chase Elliott's not in the race and all this is going on. I got better things to do. So what do you think when you had 4 million people watch Bristol on Easter last year? Half of that maybe is going to be back this year because you probably pissed off a lot of people thinking, I don't care about your $1 million deals in your TV contract. I just want to turn on my TV and watch you. But all I hear is grumbling behind the scenes. And I blame these owners. It's like, cry me a river. I frankly don't get it. Shame on you for this. Wouldn't be a story if they didn't run their big mouths. So that, it's like, that just
they
drama.
And they could probably they should have somebody that is making, because I don't know who these owners are, but I can't imagine that there are any less. I don't think they have any less foresight than NASCAR, because NASCAR's done a really bad job, as we know, with a lot of the decisions that, especially with the scheduling, and we can go down the laundry list of things that we don't agree with. There's a lot of things that the owners probably, and we talked about salary cap, a lot of things that we would probably agree with what the owners are, but they're just going about doing it wrong. And they probably should just have one guy that they say, hey, you're the man. You're our guy. You speak for us. And everybody else, you just tell us what your plan is, and then you are the guy that's going to set up an individual, not all of us going together, sitting in a big room with 15 other people. That's not going to go anywhere. So just get one guy with France, sit in a room, and talk.
Yep, figure this out, and just let us know what you decide. Because, like, Jeff Gordon was Hendrick's guy. He was the guy that's going there. And then the guy that a lot of guys doing the talking is Michael Jordan's kind of manager for all these years. Because obviously Michael Jordan has stake in 2311, so he was representing 2311. And so you're talking about higher up people, and which baffles my mind that these people should know better. And you're going up to call the media. You're calling Jenna Pryor, the Associated Press, and saying, guess what we did? Why? What game? Because imagine if the NFL owners, because they have their owners' meetings, imagine if they all, because we don't always know what's in the meetings. Like granted, ESPN, it's like, oh, the owners' meetings are this week. But imagine if it was kind of behind the scenes, and they were all supposed to meet Roger Goodell, and they all decided, hey, let's not go. Let's stand them up. None of us would know that. And then imagine them going to ESPN and saying that. That would be massive news. And that's what these guys are doing. It's like, let's see how foolish, because I've seen the script before. IndyCar split. That's why that's why everything, their numbers and everything's down. And this was in 1995 when all this was going on in the background. They split for 96, and here we are in 2023, and they're nowhere close to what they used to be. That's treading that they're going in that direction, because these owners are basically in this all woke world that we live in is we don't like what we want, so we're just going to leave. You don't give me what I want. It's all me, then I'm going to leave. Well, leave.
Yeah,
because it used to be people didn't test NASCAR. They knew NASCAR was where the sport will be here before you, after you. Now it seems like these teams are like, well, then what would happen if they don't show up for a race? What if they just look together like, hey, then what do you do? So it's getting to that territory now, because the TV deal, the contract is up in 24.
And this is the worst time too, because it's not like if they're even talking to ESPN. I mean, that Disney, everybody knows they're tanking. The people, they're going to lay off who knows how many people at ESPN, and now this is the time you want to ask them for money. So it's a very difficult time, and but look, this is not a surprise. We've been saying this for years. There's a lot of dumb things going on that don't make a lot of sense to us. And now, and again, saying it again, unfortunately, the owners are handling it the wrong way. Because I'm not siding with the owners with what they've done or what they're doing to the sport, but how you get to that meeting place so the owners know what the problems are and how we can rectify the issue. Obviously, this is not the way to go about doing it. So,
no, and the fans don't care.
No.
The fans don't care about that. And now you're letting it leak out, because here we are another week. We did this, talked about this last year. We started this year. We're going into race weekends not talking about the actual racing content on track. We're talking about all these penalties and drama, and how the owners, and there's no respect. And it's a quick way to turn fans away from you, especially in a crowded time of year right now.
That's what I'm saying. I said we led with it. I mean, I'm going to watch the Masters, man. I'll probably have I'll watch a little of this. Obviously, I have to, but I'm not like, I don't like this. Nobody likes this race except NASCAR.
And this is going to look bad when all this is going around. It's going to look worse. And again, I agree with the owners in a sense. Hey, you probably deserve a bigger chunk of this biggest pie that's going around. But this isn't the way to handle it. You don't leak it to the media. You don't do what you're doing. You don't grandstand. And the numbers are going down. We've seen that. Each percentage points are going down. And now you've got the drama. If I'm Amazon or I'm CBS, and I'm sitting there and NASCAR is like, hey, we want this amount of money. I'm like, you're fighting.
Yeah, I know.
I have no idea what cars are going to be in the track, and your numbers are tanking. I think you want $2 billion. I'll give you $800,000. They're going to now get lowballed. They're not helping themselves. Hey, you want the bigger piece of TV money? Well, that pie may get smaller because you're now leaking this out to said media for TV companies that are bidding for this guy. It's like, do you not see how stupid this looks? And the common race fan is sitting back like, I don't care.
That's it.
You seem like drama. I'm going to watch something else. Baseball started, NBA playoffs.
But that's a good thing, though, because I'm glad this is happening. I'm glad the ratings are dropping. That's the wake-up call that's needed.
Yep.
To get eventually, they are going to get together, and they're going to try to work it out. So that's a good thing. I don't know how much traffic will come back when Chase gets back. It's not going to be the whole thing, but
no.
Still, I think, you know what? It has to happen sooner or later. Just changes need to be made. So
it does. It needs. Honestly, it sounds. I think NASCAR needs to start ruling with the iron fist again. You know what? If these teams don't like them being the executioner and the judge, then don't get out of line. You need to start respecting NASCAR more, and that's what NASCAR has just lost the respect. They have gone. They were too nice. And these teams have walked all over them. And now, I think we've seen this a lot of times in businesses and corporations and other sporting leagues. When you try to get your power back, the struggle usually, and that's where we are. That's unfortunately where this is in NASCAR. And you don't see too many success stories with this. So the teams need to really suck this up and realize that you are not NASCAR, that this isn't going to work well for you. And it's not going to work well for them. It's really hurting you in the long run. And I've always said this. This is what happened when, like the NFL, when the players started kneeling and they started losing. And if you give somebody something else to do, people that have watched this religiously, you open their eyes that there's another world over here on Sundays, they're not coming back. And that's what happened in IndyCar. And that's what's about to happen. That's what's happening right now to NASCAR. People like, I'm not watching this anymore. I'm sick of this drama. This is nothing about racing on TV. This is all. I don't like the stages. I don't like how these overtimes. There's so much not to like. And then you throw the accelerant on the fire with this racing on Easter. People are like, I'm not watching that. And then you're going to diminish more numbers. How do you think you're going to get a raise on your next TV contract when you're doing this? And it's a wake up call. The panic the panic button's ringing. Are they going to respond, or is this? To me, it just seems like it's only going to get worse.
Well, the economy's not going to get any better, so they better get to it and work out a deal as soon as they can. The longer they wait and the worse this economy gets it's going to be bad for everybody involved. Yep. So better to that's why I'd like to, if I'm in the profession nowadays. I mean, NFL has it the best, but I'm like, hey man, give me, and I know you can get NBA, of course, and Major League Baseball. They can give out those guaranteed contracts, but that's all I'd be asking for now. Give me a guaranteed contract.
Yep.
I don't care. Give me 50% less contract as long as you're giving me guaranteed money. I want guaranteed money. I don't know where the money's going to be 5 years from now. So it's. But look, we're here to cover it. I hope at least the racing can turn around. I don't want to be on this show again next week talking about how the best car in the race lost in the last 5 laps because of something stupid. So
yeah, exactly.
Because that gets old. That's all a part of what you're saying, and there's only so much we can hang on with this. So, but. Again, it's dirt, so I don't really put too much into it. Next week, it's going to be Martinsville?
Martinsville.
So we got Martinsville, and then we have our Talladega race, right?
Martinsville, yes. Talladega and then Dover will be right out this month.
So there you go. So. Martinsville, and then Martinsville, is that just a regular Sunday? Okay.
Yes. Yep, back to a Sunday. It was a Saturday night last year, but again, it's where I applaud NASA. Hey, temps are too cold. It's April. This car, this package, the tire, it didn't jive well at night. So let's put it back to the day. Hopefully, keep some heat in the track. So hey, I'm good with that. The only thing I'm not good with is, again, why is this race the same time as the IndyCar race? You're going to split the fans next week.
Again, yeah, that's part of the problem. Yes, no question.
Yep.
And then next week, we'll let everybody know what we decide for the live Talladega race, when to tune in. So thanks for tuning in once again. Comments, just have them keep coming. Subscribe if you haven't. I'm not sure what you're waiting for, but please do that if you enjoyed the videos, and also share the videos if you can, and press the like button too. That's also very much appreciated. Eric, we'll talk hopefully on Tuesday.
Yep, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. Talk to you then.
Yep.